And we are live. Hello, everyone. Glad to see you again this week. A lot of things going on this week, so we just keep the live streams coming. Today we will talk about the Congress that happened. When did it end?
Yesterday?
Yesterday?
Yeah. It ended kind of anticlimactically yesterday. It felt like every day I was like, there's so much going on. I kept trying to keep up. And then yesterday I was like, and we're done.
Our group chat went wild. We have a group chat on Discord, which you can join if you join the Patreon. Should be available in every tier, right? So for $1 per month, or €1 or £1 or whatever it is in your currency, you can join and you can talk and scream and yell with us about decisions and skates.
I really loved our Discord this week because it was I was watching a lot live, but even when I wasn't watching live, seeing everyone's reactions and trying to guess what was actually going on based on everyone's reactions was amazing. And I love our wonderfully nerdy fandom that we are all live streaming the governing Congress meeting and talking about it as it's happening, like it itself is entertainment. So it was great.
I really enjoyed it as well. I have no idea what's going on at any time, but
it was the first time I was watching, and it's so chaotic. Like, I imagined it to be chaotic, but it was much more than I could even imagine.
Yeah. Wasn't like day one also like, didn't they mix like with speed skating or something? Was it like, I don't know. I didn't listen. I wasn't part of that. So
yeah, it's always interesting when I remember that the council is making decisions for both sports, and that the Congress is combined like this, because speed skating and figure skating seems so different. And the fact that they're still connected together is odd. And I know that I feel like I was also influenced watching this Congress by the fact that I just am finishing reading Sonia Bianchetti's book about called Cracked Ice, and it's like all about her attempts to reform the ISU in various ways, being on the technical committee and trying to get rid of figures, and then trying to split the ISU figure skating from speed skating. So there's a lot of it's full of a lot of criticism of various things about how the ISU functions, some of which, I take it all with a grain of salt, because it's not like she's an unbiased person, being someone who had like a very much of an agenda, who was part of it for a long time. But it's definitely very interesting. And so I was thinking about that while watching all of this.
It feels very random. Hi, Melissa. Hello. And hi, everyone else who's here. Please engage. We are very curious about all of you guys' opinion as we go through all of the proposals. And I also have no idea what everybody else put on the slideshow. So this will be interesting. Should we get started?
Yeah.
Okay. I love this. I love Go ISU. That was amazing.
See, this is the kind of thing that makes me roll my eyes so much. Like, how much effort do you think they spent in trying to figure out an acronym that would spell out Go ISU?
That's what I was thinking. And embrace a culture of openness and willingness to change. I love it.
It's like, this is so generic and useless, but some of the actual, I was pleasantly surprised, I guess, because I had seen this, and so I thought like they were going to be at this level of generic platitudes. But then I felt like the actual presentation from the president and the director general was actually really interesting in a couple of places, like thinking about what innovating each of the sports might look like, and the fact that they are basically like, well, everything else that we want to do in the sport requires money, and we're not going to have money without broadcasting contracts. And we're not going to have broadcasting contracts unless the TV channels think that our sport is interesting to watch, or we have to find some other way of making money. And so it's like keeping all, like, they're pretty blunt about that. And so that if you keep that in mind, it's like, right. So then everything else is driven by that. And I feel like it was somewhat cynically a good way of thinking about the rest of the Congress. It was like, right, okay, they're trying to figure out how to make money because after the next Olympics, they're going to have to renegotiate all of these contracts and they're going to have no money if they can't make people want to buy these sports, essentially.
Josh is saying they probably have a PR firm in the background helping them. It looks like it, yes. I do love that they have like the key phrases that fans have wanted them to address, like topics they wanted them to address, and they really nailed those.
And I think they were also like, they did well at addressing them. Of course, like what we see is just on the surface level of what they're talking about. But I think with things like safeguarding, they really did well. They had Gracie got, I think you can hear motorbikes outside, apologies. I think...
Sarah, your microphone is very static. We are trying to fix that. Because you are saying very good things, and I want everybody to hear those. But we can... Should we go to the first slide while Sarah is tried?
Or try, Sarah, if you think you're better.
I've changed my mic. Is this any better?
Yes, no static.
Okay, we'll work with that. Oh, okay.
But now it's very quiet, unfortunately.
Gracie Gold.
Gracie Gold, yeah. Oh, yeah. They had Gracie Gold in to talk about her recent memoir and a lot of the things that she went through in her life, and I thought it was like a really good step in front of so many big people in their federations to listen to her first-hand experience. And I think the ISU have also are now dedicating funds, or like an additional fund, to help each federation with their safeguarding policies. So I think it's obviously like a step in the right direction, hopefully. It's a shame that it's taken until, a Vision 2030 document to get to this stage, but hopefully it shows that they are wanting to move.
Yeah. Yeah, I agreed. Again, I have very low expectations for these things, but I thought that it was not nothing. And the fact that it's not nothing shows that they are feeling the pressure. And so that makes me feel like, as soon as there are policies, then people can be held accountable to those policies. And also, the money, again, interesting to think about how it's used, because each federation gets like a member contribution from the ISU. I believe it's $50,000, but it might be $50,000 between figure skating and speed skating, something like that. And then they're getting some additional new money on top of that to support the safeguarding work. But the problem is, at least in my experience, in trying to understand how any of that money is spent, it's almost impossible to tell within the federations. Even within the federations that have to follow, procedures where they do publish their budget, you can't tell like what that money is earmarked for versus something else. So I'm really curious, like what kinds of strings actually get attached to that, and referring back to it.
I wasn't laughing at what you were saying. I was obviously laughing at everybody dropping like flies just now.
We're losing some merit.
We will have a live stream without troubles at one point, but not this one.
It will happen.
No, what you were saying was so smart, and I was also slightly paying attention. Should we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can continue.
I think we should go to the first proposal.
Yeah.
Should we? Yes. Oh, I didn't prepare this.
This was the one I put up because I was trying to think about what some of the pieces that were not like technical rule change proposals, but that were being announced in the first couple days by the ISU Council. And I think we actually had manufacturer logo did involve a rule change as well, but they talked quite a bit about it. And I thought it was a really interesting discussion. And I still don't have a clear sense of what the actual outcome of this is going to look like. I was trying to find a picture of Carolina Costner's Suzuki dress because she had a dress that had the like Suzuki S logo in it. But you wouldn't have necessarily, like, unless you were like knew that and connecting it, you wouldn't necessarily figured out what it was in the dress. It was just a funny looking dress. But I think that would not fall under the way this is described because they're talking about like a size of a logo.
I'm so confused by this one. Do they mean like soccer players or like who wear like brand deals on their shirt?
I mean,
I don't know if I like that.
I think
No.
so. This is again where I'm a little confused, and maybe this, if somebody feels like they understands this, that would be amazing.
That's the first point.
The actual rule change was involving like how big a label could be on a skate, like on the boot, that you could have a marker, which I think would be fine.
Yeah.
But then when they were talking about it, they kept saying things about, you know, Nathan and Michelle Kwan having Vera Wang costumes and figure skating and fashion. And that, you know, I think the idea is that not so much that like skaters would get sponsored by Suzuki though, or whatever they could, I guess, but like it's a little less, yeah, it's a little less like, oh, the logo on that you might have on your Federation jacket. And I think it was more the idea that, you know, maybe skaters would get their costumes for free if their designer could advertise what was on the costume. And make more of a big deal about that. So it was interesting. I'm curious what you all think about if that's a good idea or not.
Again, I think. No, but try. We will try. Say something. We will try. Okay, you were. No, I think there's also a difference between having like Volvo on your chest or like Chanel.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, see, it shouldn't be, but it feels like there's a. Yeah, are we talking manufacturers or sponsors? That's different, right?
Yeah.
So, can you
Oh.
hear me at all?
Yes.
Yes.
Great now.
Okay, I'm using my laptop's actual
It's
microphone
perfect
for
now.
the first time.
Perfect.
So I was actually watching back the stream earlier today and listening to the proposals. It is not a sponsor. It can't be a sponsor. It's explicitly for the manufacturer of the dress, or skating outfit. They keep specifying the word manufacturer, which bothers me because in my head I'm like, it's a designer. So I believe it should be the designer's logo, or on the blade, that will then be the manufacturer of the blade or the boot. It will also be interesting because skaters rarely sort of stop. Like, it's 4 minutes of constant moving. So the only time you're really going to see that is in the kiss and cry. So I get the point of view that they're coming from, that they want to connect with like the fashion world and get that brought in. But at the same time, people working with Vera Wang is only going to work when they're like a top name. I don't see it immediately connecting. I think there might be, and obviously like within different countries, it might be a great opportunity for designers in different countries to get their creation seen. But I think it's gonna be an adjustment, but it will be the biggest tell with the Olympics, because I think if someone is like, hi, I'm like a skater from the UK, a big British designer might be like, yes, let's collaborate, let's do something big. So that it could end up being good, but we'll just have to see.
And also Melissa is saying that it's pretty common in gymnastics and ballroom dancing. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I guess that if they're looking at that, I mean, ideally, I would hope that they would have talked to skating designers about this as well, as fashion designers. That I wonder, I'm trying to imagine, like, do we see a like Matthew Caron label on things, or is this only for like crossover fashion into things that would go for a non-skating audience as well? Because I feel like that's a very big difference between, getting sponsored. Like most international skaters have sponsorships with their boot and blade manufacturers, and that's a thing that then, but that's because those are people who are then marketing to skaters, like, other skaters down the pipeline. And that seems different than like marketing to the TV audience at large. So I'll be curious. This also made me really want skater merchandise, because when they were talking about the what the speed skaters have, and the fact that like you could have, all these people cheering for a team and not have any merchandise you could buy for that team, compared to the way it is in so many professional sports leagues, it just was making me think about, the amount of money and effort that I have gone through to, order fan-made merchandise for, stickers for skaters, or all of the Japanese skaters with their towels and all of that stuff. And that it would be really interesting if the ISU decided to, do some kind of official merchandising for skaters, and whether that was connected to this designer thing or not. But I was imagining that, like, you'd get the scarf version or the tote bag version or the whatever, that had a design that referenced the skater's dress for that season, or something like that. That could be like the fan thing that you wore to the competition or show your sport. Like, I feel like there's room for creativity there. So I'm curious about that kind of piece of sports marketing, because it does seem like, at least from thinking about the fans that I know, and that the amount of money and effort people will go to buy things to support their favorite skaters.
Yes, I agree.
And it could also be an opportunity for some. Oh, can you hear me?
It was a little.
It's a bit laggy.
Try again.
Oh no. I think the screen is frozen.
Okay. If it doesn't come through, Vera, try putting it in the chat. Okay, we lost her. Anyway, so that was the manufacturer logo piece. And then there was some other stuff that I thought was interesting from this piece too, that they're talking about how to improve the quality of, basically both the live experience and the TV experience. And so, like, a lot of what they were saying made me think, like, right, they watched Euros in Lithuania, and like the things that were taken from others kind of sports production, of having things that made it be fun to be in the audience in between the skaters. And I know that there's some people who are feeling very defensive about how much they love the Zamboni breaks, but I feel like they had a disco Zamboni in Kaunas, so we could have that back. But they also were talking about the trying to provide more support to hosts, like better, because it's the local TV crew that does the filming, and then sometimes they're better and more familiar with skating, and sometimes less so. And that's when we all complain about the cameraman like choosing weird angles and like not showing the skaters' feet, or only showing the skaters' feet, or whatever. And it seems like they're trying to provide some more support and oversight so that that will be more consistent in the future, which again seems really good. And they also were talking about producing more behind the scenes content for skaters, and making it easier for the skaters to also be able to share stuff directly, like the photo gallery that we get access to as media, like having skaters get a link to like, here are your pictures that you can use in social media and tag the ISU in it and we'll share it. You know, it just seems like they're trying to be a bit, you know, more integrated and organized in that way. And I think it just made me think if it actually works, that they can have that kind of partnership back and forth with the skaters, if it feels like easy and supported on both sides, that would be really nice.
Melissa is saying it sounded like they just learned of the existence basic event management, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised. Do the skaters not get access to the media pictures we get?
No.
Why not? That's so easy.
I think they just...
It's why they always...
ever think of asking, maybe? I don't know.
That's
yeah, I know, like, we've gotten DMs from skaters being like, have you got photos you can send us? And I know Vera said that she also had them. So yeah, it's quite like funny that they have to go to photographers. I think it will be good for like skaters, especially with social media, and the skaters, like the younger generation that are putting that social media content out there. The ones that are like getting popular on TikTok, it wouldn't hurt at all the ISU to be like, hey, here's some photos that we've taken, you can promote and like tag us so that people can find us.
Also, I wish they would include some short videos in the media package. I feel like in times of social media, short clips, I know like it's so expensive because we can't film because we don't have the broadcasting rights, so we can't film at any of the competitions. But it would be like, especially for a sport like figure skating, give us short 10 seconds clips we can share.
Yes, definitely. And I think they're going to do more of the off-ice stuff. And then, but I think the problem is that they're still in such, like the TV contracts with what they're allowed to do with on-ice stuff is complicated. One thing that I am intrigued by but suspicious of is this new website, because I know Paula from Golden Skate tried to ask about this during the press conference. I tried to ask about this during the press conference about sort of what kinds of video, like which events will they be streaming directly, or are they still going to use YouTube, or are they going to have it on their own website since they're moving to a more like fan-facing website, where the idea being you would go there to find how to watch the event. And it's, my fear is that they're going to move to a place where it's a paid platform, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world, if there's a way to watch events live in good quality, that you have to have a paid subscription to, like, I can live with that being something. But I do worry that if they take everything off of YouTube, YouTube should be the place for the short clips, for the and ideally, I mean, it's just such a shame YouTube is so perfect for watching a figure skating program. It's like the right length for a video to share there, and what they're sharing and what they're not. Tried to ask about including more than 6 videos of the top 6 people, and including more of that. Why don't they stream the challengers? Like, it seems like they're leaving opportunities on the table, which again goes to Melissa's point about basic event management. So that's where I feel like a lot of these proposals were like, right, this seems logical. You're catching up to where you should be and where other sports are. Why is it taking so long? But going back to what I was saying at the beginning, reading Sonia Bianchetti's book, she was talking about like the need to modernize stuff, and like how they didn't have a lawyer when she joined in the 80s, and like how they were giving personal loans to the mortgage of the director general at the time. So it's just like, okay, this is an organization that has been messy for a long time, and the idea of them being modern and professional is gonna be a like slow turning of a ship. So I have some sympathy for that, even though I'm impatient to see them do it.
I think
Yeah,
one of the things with the website is that the president of the ISU and the director general sort of contradicted each other when they were talking about how there's going to be a YouTube, like the YouTube channel is going to stay for the next couple of years until broadcasting rights are up. But then they want to integrate onto their new website, but at the same time, they want to have that accessibility and keep that accessibility. And by putting it on a new website, it's going to be hard for people to find that are new to sport. Yes, it's all sort of going to be centralized, but is someone going to stumble across Yuma Kageyama's free skate on YouTube now? No, because they're moving it behind onto a new interface. The second thing is, if with the accessibility, if it does go behind a paywall, how much are they paywalling? Is it going to be like the entire thing? Maybe will they let worlds be free? Like it's good in one sense, but it also takes back in another.
Yeah. It's where I felt like in my not knowing what the relative, sales value of these different things is, I felt like a reasonable compromise in my mind is that you would have, like, let's say a certain amount of stuff is available on YouTube, like let's say programs from the last 2 or 3 seasons or something, like each individual program video is on YouTube. So you can share, and individual programs could go viral and skaters can share their videos and that stuff, and that should be free. But then maybe the competition stream itself, either live and recaps, are things that people want and maybe are more like a dedicated fan would be willing to pay for the ability to go back and watch something or to watch the competition live. Like that feels like it's more in that space of like the highlight clip, the thing that you would want to share. But I don't know enough about, how these contracts work and what's available, but it does seem, I guess the other thing I would add to that is that it seems like a lot of sports are struggling with this right now. And it's not just skating that, if you're trying to watch the NBA season, for example, sometimes you need to have like 3 different subscriptions to be able to follow a team throughout the whole season and postseason, and that they've split this stuff up. And it's partly because of they've caught between traditional broadcasting and online stuff, but then also trying to make money by selling it off to different places. It's like, it seems messy, even in big sports, where there's a very large interested audience. And so I do think it's unrealistic for us to expect that the ISU YouTube channel will have everything we want to watch for free forever. Just knowing that they need to make money off of the broadcasts, and it's art, and that keeping it that way creates a 2-tiered system between the places that have countries and the places that have their country have just broadcast contracts, and the places that don't as well, because not everybody knows how to use a VPN.
Yeah, but and also the thing with the broadcast rights is in many countries, and I know that from many like fans, they don't like they technically have the rights, but no, there is no actual broadcasting.
Yeah.
Which I guess it's good that they at least bought the rights, but then the fans don't even have an alternative to VPN. They can't go on TV and watch it because it's not anywhere. But for some reason, it's also blocked on YouTube for them.
Yeah.
And yeah,
it's
a lot
bad.
of stuff like that adds to the experience.
Yeah.
It's really annoying. I was wondering the 4th point, working group on the future of competition formats. Is that in competition formats like for the competition?
This
or
was
for the
very briefly mentioned and very vague, but something that I really want to I'm waiting for the communication to come out and to follow this, because they have these informal working groups about different things that often then will bring forward a set of proposals that then the ISU will put forward as their own proposal. So like they have a working group on they had a working group on the age question, for example, that then became the age proposal. They have working groups on sustainability or like on governance, or the whole thing they're doing with driving riskier investment strategies. And like, so they will do these things when they're like, we know we are going to need to make a decision, but we don't have the proposals yet. And they said they were putting forward a working group for figure skating on basically like what figure skating competition should look like in the future. And so what I took that to mean was like, that's the place that they might propose something like separate technical and artistic programs, or a jump competition to be had alongside things, or, you know, like that kind of like more extreme changes to the sport, that they're not going to like have that come out of the technical committee, because it is so specific to like, it has so much of an implication with things like what's allowable under the Olympics, what do TV people want to see. So they're not going to like leave just the technical committees to make those kinds of decisions. I mean, when I talked, because I interviewed the head of the technical committee for singles and pairs earlier this year, and he said that, you know, he and the committee for a long time have been really interested in trying to move to a more distinct free skate and short program, to have one be much more technical and one be more artistic. And that's the direction that some of these new changes were going to move in, but that like, it's really the ISU that would need to make those decisions, like the whole council. They wouldn't just be coming from the technical committee. So I think this is something to watch. See, especially like, we won't know anything about their work until they report on it, but we can see who they put on it, which will be interesting. So anyway, that like my ears perked up, and that's something I want to watch.
I do want to propose to the ISU, wherever you can, please include fans and like hear voices outside of the circle that you are in, because I think that's important. That's often forgotten.
I kept laughing when they were saying, they kept saying this is popular with the youth. And like every time that a 70-year-old says something is popular with the youth, it was like, oh
no. Yeah, Josh is saying that it's difficult with all of the opinions and viewpoints, for sure. But I think that's why they should listen to the fans, because the fans and the skaters are probably the most important people they should listen to.
Yeah. And I was watching on Twitter and feeling like, okay, you know, when people are like, oh, all the ISU cares is about going viral and they're just chasing, you know, this. And I'm like, well, no, they're trying to figure out how the sport makes enough money that they can keep actually all of the things going. Like that's not I don't think it's not wrong that they're trying to figure out how to make people watch it on TV and on YouTube and have skaters and the federations and the event hosts be able to make enough money. Like that is their job. Whether they're doing, you know, whether they're making the right decisions, I think we can all argue about. And like maybe they're being short-sighted with some of those decisions and chasing things going viral. But sometimes I get a little frustrated with that kind of knee-jerk, like, I think in a lot of cases, the intention is not bad. It's just whether they're getting the right expert opinions and feedback into making these decisions that I wonder about. Maybe I'm being naive that I think their intentions are good, but I do feel like in general, they're trying at least to make the sport be a popular sport and make money.
That's what I was just thinking, not in terms of making money, but more funding from ISU to support federations in safeguarding efforts. That's a good thing. Like if they actually manage to do that, good for them.
And the work that they do with the development committee and hosting seminars and hosting programs for coaches from smaller federations to learn things. And like, there is, you know, like we all love to complain about the ISU for good reasons, but like, I do think that there is stuff that they do that is valuable. And so then like, good job, do a lot more of it and do it even better, but.
And also go through with it. Like, if somebody is doing things that are against then you have to pull through and pull them out. What was the last point? Oh, not yet implementing split judging panels. Somebody explain this to me.
So 2 years ago, there was a proposal brought forward from a couple of places, especially the Netherlands, to have separate judging panels for the technical elements and the PCS. So there would be like 5 judges and 5 judges or something like that. I can't remember exactly how they were planning to split it. And so the compromise position was that they would do a couple of test events. I kept waiting to hear what those test events were going to be, because in my mind, I was imagining that like, oh, they were going to be judged that way. It turns out what they did was they had like shadow panels, basically, where they had like another group of judges watching the event and like fake judging it on 2 different panels. And it seemed like the conclusion from this was that it didn't make a big difference, or that the judges were still kind of more trying to figure out how to do the 3 components, or that like it seemed that it wasn't fully successful or ready to be implemented. And so it kind of got pushed into this state of like, well, maybe we'll do some more test events and see what else we can do. I am really interested in talking to, that was another working group, by the way, of people working on the split judging panel. And I did interview one of the people who was on it like almost 2 years ago now when they were first starting it. And I'd really like to get more of that feedback on what it was like. I think when it was getting proposed, a lot of us were a little skeptical that it was going to make a big difference to the quality of judging. It's like, yes, great. They're have fewer things to pay attention to, so maybe they'll do a better job judging, but they might still be influenced in the same ways, or they might still judge PCS just as badly, even if it's the only thing they're focusing on. Or so I think, but I am curious to hear more about it, but it sounds like it's not going to come up right now. But these are these are the kinds of things I'm like, you said you were going to try something out 2 years ago, and that was your way of pushing it off. But I want to hear the report about how did it go. So I wish the working groups, I mean, I'm sure they do report to the council in more detail, but I wish that they did more public reports about what they actually find out of these groups.
Yeah, I'm also curious, like, I mean, supposedly with the test groups, they just used existing judges for both of these. But theoretically, it could be that those, like, say, would they be like trained differently, or would they have different backgrounds like that? Like, probably not. But like, it's an interesting thing to think about. Like, because like supposedly the judges just focusing on the technical side would be a little closer to technical committee bit. I mean, obviously they also award the GOE, right? Because that's the others just focus on the PCS. But still, and the ones that focus on the PCS, like, is there, like, would there be any difference? Like, that's also a thing too. Oh,
I liked Caitlin Weaver's idea that there should be non-skating specialists included in the judging panel. Like, she was saying that with dance, that there should be, like, if you have a tango rhythm dance, then you should have somebody who really is like an expert in tango, helping to assess it. And like, I think that it's something I keep coming back to is like, yeah, judges are not experts in all of the styles and all of the types of music and all of the things the skaters are portraying. And like, I think it's totally reasonable that they have things that they know more about and are more, and things that they like more. Like, that subjectivity is okay, but it is something that I always think about, like, in terms of having judges that come from diverse backgrounds and come from backgrounds where, yes, we want them to know a lot about skating, but are they also, do they have a broader like artistic and musical training as well?
Should we move on to the proposals?
Yeah, let's talk about the technical stuff, since these are the actual decisions that got made here.
So I'm going to read them, or just, because this is also a podcast at one point. So if I manage to upload that, then it will be a podcast. So proposal 21, creation of pairs technical committee withdrawn to be looked at as part of the modernization of the constitution. I'm going to read them all for now on the slide. Proposal 27, technical requirements be published by May 31st, amended to this date during Congress, accepted by majority. Urgent Proposal 11, to allow manufacturers' logo of costumes or blades to be on the respected item to allow skaters to engage with the fashion industry. We already talked about the last one, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting with the Paris Technical Committee that was a proposal from the US, which has often had issues with what the technical committee has been doing with Paris. We saw that last time and this time. And so that they think that they're not getting Paris expertise, I guess, on the technical committee. It's interesting because I've tried to assess the background of the technical committee, and a lot of them are judges or come off of being judges who have judged a lot of pairs. But the only one in the current committee who is a pair skater, as far as I can tell, is the athlete representative, Kong Han. So anyway, it's interesting. And then the ISU's council's objection to the proposal basically was that it would take up too much time and money and like resources to have another technical committee, which again, without knowing how much money these things actually cost, it's hard to assess that relative value. But it's also super interesting, we haven't talked about this, that there's going to be another Congress next year to rewrite the Constitution of the whole ISU. So that is interesting.
Gonna be a very fun, if it's gonna be streamed. I should hope it will be.
So everybody join our Discord by then, because we are going to have a good time next year.
We are having a lot of fun cheering for and groaning at the people who speak up a lot, but I have like Austrian Speed and the representative from Ireland. But I kind of have to say that I love people who don't let the people running these events just get away with having the agenda all their own way and setting all the decisions ahead of time. I think even though Robert's Rules is super messy and tiring, and yes, I kind of sympathize with the like, this looks like a disaster and like no one can do anything, it's also like supposed to be a form of democracy. And so I'm like, yes, you tell them like that they're not abiding by their own rules, like you fight for that. So I was all the same. I was having some fun cheering for the people who were speaking up.
I think Josh brought up a good point. There needs to be a way where more athlete representatives, choreographers can then transition to further positions in the ISU. That would go a long way to getting more expertise in these entities. And also, I might add, please add more diversity to the... would also help with a lot of things.
Yeah, I will try not to go on too much of my rant about athlete representation and how it's not real representation, but it is really frustrating that on the technical committees, the athlete and coach representatives are just like appointed and nominated by the committees. So there's no like, they pick somebody that they want to work with and that they think will, agree with where the committee's going. And, it's not that those people aren't trying to do a good job or aren't trying to then talk to other athletes about how things are going, but like, it's not actually representative. And even though the representatives who sit on the council and the athletes commission are supposed to be, they are like elected by their peers, they don't actually have any way of directly being in communication with those peers. And so without that, like how are they supposed to be representing their viewpoints and communicating decisions to them? So I have strong feelings about all of this and how it's not actually giving athletes more power and voice. It just is making it look like they have that voice while giving a couple of people like fancy jobs. And on that note, I was really interested to hear that Evan Bates spoke up during one of the technical committee discussions and said, thanks, Josh, and said that he thought it was really interesting that there was an athletes meeting at the ISU, at World Championships, they had an athletes meeting with the ISU that it was mostly pair skaters who were able to go to it because of the timing of when it happened. And that they spoke about how they were kind of frustrated with the decisions being made and partway through the Olympic cycle, and that they didn't really understand it. And he was basically like, why aren't there more direct communication with the athletes? And part of me was like, Evan, that's your job to do that. But also, like, he's saying this in this public forum. It was a very mild criticism, but it was a criticism. And so I was interested to see him speaking up in that way. And again, I'm really curious how they try to pursue this moving forward. There's also been more technical committee meetings with singles and pairs with the coaches at events, and that's relatively new. So there's been some grassroots sort of pressure from coaches and a little bit from athletes to have more of their opinions being heard. And I think that's a really good sign. There's so many factors in skating that kind of weigh against people speaking up to the people who are then going to judge them. But I am glad to see a little bit more of that happening.
Anybody wants to add anything? No.
My soapbox moment, yeah.
No, that was perfect. I think we got all of this.
Any skaters want to form a union, get in touch.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we finished this slide, right? Yeah. Okay, so next slide. Proposal 45 accepted. Junior ice dance age raises to 21 for women. Junior pairs age raises to 21 for women and 23 for men. There's a maximum of 7 years allowed between partners. How do we feel about this? Silence.
I mean, I saw so many funny meme tweets about this, being like 23-year-old junior, like junior partner, like in a law firm. That was a funny one. Yeah, it's, you're a 23-year-old, you'll then be competing against the 13-year-old. It just, I get why they're raising the age, especially in pairs, which is a discipline that is like goes overlooked most of the time, and it's the smallest discipline. So in juniors, you really want to see it grow and develop. It's just you're then going to be watching a 21-year-old and a 23-year-old compete against a 15-year-old and a 14-year-old partnership. It's just very unbalanced. I'm trying to find a tweet. So someone else talk. I'm going to find a tweet that I thought was amusing.
I saw one tweet that said 23-year-old men, they could be married with kids. And I'm like, please don't. 23-year-old men should not be married with kids. But I get the point, but please don't.
I mean, we're watching, I'm not anything against Nesset and Markelov, but like they just got married at 18, whatever. So it's like, we could, none of this is going to stop anyone. Yeah. I mean, I think the age restriction makes sense at the junior level to have the maximum of 7 years. I've had like mixed feelings about all of these sort of age rules. As I've talked to a lot of people about the development of pairs, it's definitely the conventional wisdom that you want to team up basically that a boy isn't going to be good at pairs until he's kind of gone through puberty already and has had a few years to develop that kind of upper body strength. And that ideally you want that as he's developing it, you want him lifting the lightest possible girl. And so therefore there's big age gaps. I think that conventional wisdom can be criticized in a number of ways. But that is definitely for a number of people in the sport taken as like, well, that's just how it works. So if we need to make the age ranges match that you want for junior level, you ideally want like the boy after puberty and the girl before. Like they don't say it that bluntly, but that's basically what people have been saying. It makes me wonder about, though, like we do see strong novice, you see novice pair teams sometimes be very good. You see, actually, I always thought it was really interesting in Russia that you do see teams like team up much younger and stay together sometimes, like, or be good even at that kind of the boy at a younger age. So I question some of that logic, but that's definitely like the logic that is being put forward at the junior for like the development of junior pairs.
I think it's good that they've sort of like said maximum of 7 years. I think it was Japan that tried to ask like, how did you come to 7 years or something along those lines. I found the tweet I was looking for. Someone quote retweeted this saying, so hypothetically a 20-year-old guy could skate with a 13-year-old girl. And Lois replied, no hypothetical, that was the age gap of the 2023 Junior World Pair Champions. So we've seen it happen. It makes a bit more sense why 7 years was like it was capped at 7 years. It's just, you don't really think of, I can't do quick math, but like a 21-year-old, I don't know, a 21-year-old and it would be 14-year-old.
Yes, you did the math correctly.
Thank you. I pick numbers in the 7 times table. It's just, you can't really think of them as like, it feels weird. It sounds weird. It's like not coming from a skating background. It's 2 age gaps that shouldn't really, or 2 ages that shouldn't really get along in normal life, Yeah. Apart from like family members or whatever, but yeah.
It creates a really strong, potential risk for the kind of abuse that we see. And they kept saying it's for safeguarding reasons, but without actually getting into what they meant by that. I sometimes struggle with our discussion around age gaps, though, because I think that, like, yes, the number of the age matters, but what often matters more is whether especially like the younger partner is in a position where they are being well supported as like she goes through puberty. Is she going to be tossed aside? Is she in a position where if something is going wrong, she has other adults she can speak up to who will trust her and not throw away her career if she says something against the coach or against it's like it's that broader support network and how the environment that you're in and how the coaches create the relationship between the athletes so that at least like on the ice and as teammates they are equal. There's a lot that can go into exacerbating or mitigating the risk there. And I feel like that is the conversation that they're not having in these spaces, even though I know from having talked to a lot of teams with big age gaps and coaches who work with pair skaters that a lot of people do think really hard about how to try to make this, not be a dangerous environment. And sometimes it is a dangerous environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish they would have just said, like, this is the reason why. Like, it was so easy just to tack on the end of a sentence, this is why we want this to happen. But, it just sort of leaves it all up to guessing, I guess. I
would have been fine with them saying that there should be a lower, raise the lower limit for pairs. If this is the thing that you're talking about, pairs requires a certain level of physical development that is hard to achieve before you've reached a certain age. Great. So make the minimum age 16 and below that you're novice. Like, that's sort of like, I'm like, if it's really this different for the upper range of what we need to do, then make the lower range that as well. And then you would have at least some less of that situation of the like pre-pubescent or like you know, like the whole idea of like having the girl be as tiny as possible is really the part that has so many risks that go with it.
And also another point, this is why we should have a pairs committee who could be like, this is what we expect a junior pairs team to compete and to do. And if they had a pairs committee, maybe they could then say, you know, it's not impossible, but it's unreasonable to expect every 13-year-old that competes on the Junior Grand Prix in pairs to be able to do this, this, and this, especially when a lot of countries don't focus on growing pairs. So maybe if they gave more options of variety with like technical content, that they could be like, okay, then we'll sort of lessen the age. But if they want to say, we want this, this, and this, think about the ages that you're asking to do this, this, and this.
Yeah. Though I think if they had a separate pairs committee, they would, you know, I would have opinions about who was on it, because like I said, I think there is a wide variety of opinion within the pair community about whether, you know, age gaps and how this is treated is like, you know, is this just, you know, whether it's a fact of biology and an immutable fact of the sport that you have to design the rules around, or whether it is something that you should think about the like health and well-being of the skaters and then just design the sport around that. It feels like that I want the committee, because I would love them to have that debate, but I would want to make sure that it wasn't just sort of, I would say, status quo within the pairs community, being, if that was just who was writing the rules, I'm not sure we would get rules that are great from a safeguarding perspective.
Moving on to the next one. Okay. Proposal 188 accepted. The qualifying round will no longer be returning for the World Championships.
And we all said thank you. It was, oh gosh, this was a proposal by Austria.
Thanks, Austria.
The US figure skating agreed with the proposal. I think, who's hosting 2026 Worlds? Whoever the host of 2026 Worlds is.
Isn't
Where, sorry?
Prague?
Yes.
They Prague.
Yeah. They backed the proposal as well. You know, they were obviously like, we're happy to host, funds have been allocated, but booking hotels are a nightmare. Booking everything is a nightmare. You're paying for the extra, the ISU event manager, I believe, was like, you're paying for the extra days, you're renting the rinks, the practice rink, the extra hotel. Like, it's just so much. He said that you're looking to forward for the Vision 2030, but at the same time, you're doing something that you did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and you've done it. Move on.
And we all breathe a sigh of relief that we don't have to learn how qualifying rounds work.
I was putting that off. I'm so glad.
So yeah, I think that's
with how minimums work and who gets to go to the free skate, and you know, like, it's not like I will frequently complain about aspects of the current system, but I don't think qualifying rounds would have made it better.
Is that your bunny? What's the sound?
Oh, yes, that is my bunny deciding this is a great moment to chew some cardboard loudly. I will try to make him shut up.
No, it's fine. I think now we know. Now we are enjoying the sound. I'm like, who is this?
It's okay. I've already been inflicted making him go outside and meet people earlier, and he was like, it was stressful, and he was like trying to like burrow into my arm because it was too hot and sunny and there were too many people around. So I'm glad to know that he is back to being rambunctious.
Did you put him on a leash?
He was in my arms.
Oh, that's cute.
I wanted to introduce him to people, but
Sarah included a very long tweet, which I will now read out. So please stay tuned. Day 3 updates. This is from So You Want to Watch Figure Skating Twitter. Proposal 177 rejected. End competition by 10 p.m. instead of 11 p.m. This is for the old people who want to be in bed early.
Why? It's also like this was hard. Like when I was in Shanghai for CCE, I was like actively risking not making it to the metro because like not everyone can afford to live near the arena, and like it was already a long day and it was ending later than the time. It was like around next to the time when the metro stops running. Like you could have planned around this. I'm pretty sure you could have made it at least 20 minutes earlier, but no.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think public transportation stops around that time in a lot of places. Or like at least by the time you leave, it's closer to 11:30, and then
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you know that you're planning the event in this place with this system. It actually like had a longer running time on Friday and Saturday, but the only day it ended that late was on Thursday, I think. So like think a little bit about people. Like I'm sure I wasn't the only one using the public transport.
and these are long days. When do competitions usually start? Around what time?
Well, it depends on the competition. Like it can be, well, obviously, if you go to the practices, it can be as early as like 6 or 7 a.m. But even not going to all the practices, it could like a long competition like 4cc or like Worlds or even Junior Grand Prix, right? They can start as early as like 12 or like 1 p.m. Yeah, and like that's a long day. Like it's
if you have to go to the press conference or the draw, like there aren't draws anymore, like that, or you have doping control afterwards, like these things can be so late, even as is for the skaters, and like
it's unreasonable, for the skaters too, who have to get up early for the practices that are much earlier than their skates. If their skates are very late, and then like until 10, and then there is the press conference or the draw, and
right. And think about those, those poor ice dance women putting it like 3 hours worth of hair and makeup on for their practices in the morning and then having to undo it afterwards at night. It's like, okay, like they're not sleeping. This is not safe.
No.
Like I remember, I think it was Hannah Lim of Korean Ice Dancer. She, of Courchevel Junior Grand Prix, she had to wake up at like 3 a.m. to do her hair and makeup to be ready for 6 a.m. practice.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I remember that's what I talked to Gabby Papadakis, like that's what she was saying also, and just like complaining about that, and that it's, I mean, because it's so unreasonable that she was putting it like, I'm skipping breakfast so that I can do my, so that I can do my makeup. So like really like I'm like directly, impacting my ability to do my work as an athlete in order to like try to look perfect for the practice where the judges might be watching you. It's like, anyway.
And we are so often talking about skaters doing competitions back to back, so it puts it even more in perspective. If this is one weekend and then the next weekend looks the same, like you have no time to rest in between.
It's the same, and it's on another continent.
Yeah,
like.
And if you have to wait until you're skating like last in the final group, like your time since you had your warm up, like you have your 6 minutes, but like your time, just like the whole thing is you're trying to stay ready for such a long part of the day. Like, I don't know, like the whole thing. Anyway, it's hard to, like, we get that there's competing pushes here in terms of making it like skating happen in prime time. They don't want to start the competitions too early, but that seems not,
And of course, you can also not add days to it, because then the fans can't come and it's getting more difficult for everybody else, and it's like it's expensive, and so it's a difficult thing to organize.
Right. Which then goes into the same thing about like how many people get to, do you make it harder for people to qualify for the events so that they aren't as long? And then what do you like? So like these decisions all impact each other, definitely.
Yeah. So the next proposal, 182, rejected. Remove -1 for deduction in favor of base value reduction on elements. Somebody has to explain this to me. This is
This was a proposal by, I want to say, the Netherlands, who they had a chart. It was a whole thing. They wanted, instead of someone when they fall in on a jump, say, to get the -1 deduction for the fall, then obviously it also affect the GOE that they get. They were proposing that the base value of the jump is then halved, and I think the GOE added onto the base value of that halved jump. And it was rejected for a number of reasons. One that comes to mind straight away is someone like a new fan watching a skating competition, wondering like what is happening, like how is this, or like all of the maths, which I absolutely get as someone who famously doesn't like maths. So yeah, I like the idea of the proposal. I think it needs a lot of further fine-tuning.
I feel like a new fan is not going to worry about the math so much. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe that's just me, because I don't watch figure skating for the points. I watch it for the music and for the skating. And for the vibes.
Yes.
And that's how you get Ellie's GOEs, which we need to continue.
See, honestly though, Ellie, I think what you just said is what the ISU president tried to say in the opening, which was that like we've made figure skating judging more fair, but people are confused and don't really like watching it. We've lost something about like why people enjoy watching it. So how can we make it be more entertaining? It's like, yeah, that's like, I mean,
and I stopped watching in 2000.
Not always the right thing, but
18, so 19. So he got a point.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to be on some workshops with them.
Yes.
Better music. That's
what's
getting me.
We're we'll put you on the as the fan should be like as a fan representative on the committee.
If anybody's listening, I will do it. It's fine. I will do it. I have a lot of opinions. So we talked about proposal. What does anybody want to add to that? Sorry. No. Anna?
It was interesting, but
Yeah, it was,
no, it's okay.
Okay, so proposal 188, we talked about that one. Oh, did we talk about the other ones? Not right.
I didn't understand the definition of the PCS they were putting into the technical committee. It seemed like they were just moving a few words around that didn't make much difference to me, but okay.
So you're talking about proposal 227, amend definitions of program component scores.
Yeah. They're trying to clarify between like unison versus unity in what was in skating skills versus composition. I kind of got where they were trying to go for, which is that like the ability of a pair team to skate in unison as a technical ability versus like overall like unity of the composition and the program, and like does it feel like a piece that is a whole are two different things, and that people were getting confused about which one they were judging, I guess. I'm saying this like with like large question marks after every sentence, because if anyone understands better what the goal was here, but I think that's where the committee's definition was trying to go. I have a suspicion that will make no difference to anything when it comes to actual judging, because I don't think the judges are paying that close of attention to the wording of what goes under which score, because as we know, they tend to mark all three components the same. But keep trying.
So the next proposal was proposal 230, accepted. Starting order of free skates in reverse order of rankings after the short program.
I don't
So that-
hate this.
Somebody explain this to me, like I'm 5.
So say, oh my God, I'm trying to think of an actual podium. I can't do this. I can't think of any podiums. But say
Bruno was first after the free skate, or after the short program at Worlds. He would have then gone last in the order for the free skate, instead of them having a draw where then Ilya went last, I think.
So basically, yeah, they put them into groups, and inside those groups, they decide the random order. And that was discontinued during COVID, right?
Yeah.
During like where they were trying to have less gatherings of people, right? And so, but then I think only last season they brought it back. And some people who only got into skating like during COVID or something were confused as to why some people weren't skating last when they were first. But now I guess it's gonna be the reverse order. So basically, like if you finished second, you will be skating second to last. If you finished first, you will be skating last. So it's just the reverse order of the finish of the short program.
I've heard them say before that TV production likes this much better, that it's easier to explain, that we are just going in reverse order.
Does it benefit the skaters? This is like Eurovision Song Contest. If you are in the lower half, you will get higher points.
I think definitely with ice dance, it's going to be noticeable. With ice dance, there is a very clear point where if you are in like the second to last or the last group, you can tell by the GOEs being maybe a point higher than they were for the first group. So you'll notice at the big events, the European, Four Continents and Worlds, teams that skate early on don't get as generous of a score. So for ice dance especially, I think it's going to be a little bit harsher, because then you won't get like it'll be a very predictable podium, and it'll be a very predictable final group a lot of the times.
I think the question that I have, like, it would be one thing if it was went from totally random to totally in the ranking order, but it was already only within like the group of 3, and so I don't know. I'd be interested to see whether we think that it has, going last really does give you an advantage over going third to last.
It also gives you nerves, though. It doesn't always give you an advantage. Like maybe in case of ice dance, it's more clear cut, but with like very like unpredictable groups of men, there are definitely men skaters who get very like, and especially if you're like young. So for instance, someone who's very like fresh to the seniors or fresh or new to the Worlds even could theoretically, just smash a completely amazing short program, and everyone else kind of like, flops and stuff. And it has happened, right? And someone end up in first, and then that just completely psychs them out. So even like, and also like there's also like the pressure of going after someone who's like, a very popular skater, or just in general, like, that someone who is a leader in the field, and going after them can be very pressuring. But it would happen regardless, honestly. So I don't think it makes that much of a difference, because as you said, it's only groups of 3.
Yeah, I mean, and you still get those examples like Adam this year, who was able to rise, and end up being in the top, even though he was starting, very, very early on because he had such a strong free skate. I think that's where the reputational points kind of hold you up, though, because if you're somebody that they, would expect to be seeing in the later group, even if they're seeing you in an early group, you still might get the scoring as if you were later on. Whereas a fluke amazing performance, I think is harder to benefit from sometimes than than recovering from a fluke terrible performance. They don't give them that benefit as much if it's not the consistency. I mean, this is all getting into the stuff that's very debatable, but it certainly appears that way when you look at the patterns over time.
Yeah, I just want to read out Josh's comment. I do miss the randomized group draws, but unexpected things can happen whether a person is said to be first in a group or last or anywhere in between that you have to learn to cope with, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think for the skaters, not having to show up, like we were saying, not having to show up and wait around after your competition for the draw is a good thing probably for them. And especially if you had a really terrible skate and then you're hoping you won't have to draw first. All the skaters clap for whoever draws the slot, because
I will miss those moments though. I mean, they still draw for the
short. Yeah.
Or do they? Well, it depends on the competition, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do love those moments in the press room where they're like gasping at whoever drew the first and clapping.
Yeah, and lots of times that people end up drawing for each other, like for everyone from their country or their school, or sometimes I feel like, I can't remember who it was last time, but there was like one skater who ended up basically drawing for everyone because like no one was at the event, at the draw, even though they were supposed to be. So it's always, there's some funny moments with that stuff, but it'll be good to, I think overall, this makes a lot more sense.
Next slide. ISU Congress decides to postpone the implementation of package 234 to 246, other than 236, 237, and 243 until the 26-27 season. So now I'm explaining what this means. This means the new choreographic elements and reduced numbers of jumps will not come in until the new Olympic cycle. Somersaults are now legal.
I would like to shout out the lady who was representing the Irish Federation here. She got them so stun-locked on this point, they had to recess early on the Wednesday. And then the Thursday, basically the whole day, almost the whole session was used to decide this. It was amusing. It was annoying. I have no idea what actually happened. And then at the end of the day, this was proposed and everyone said yes.
Well, not everyone said yes, though. So that's the thing that I found really interesting, was that it seemed like we heard a number of people basically get up and say, yes, this package makes a lot of sense and we like it. And then a few people say, but we want to see it postponed. And then the only thing that seemed to be really controversial in it, the choreographic elements, I don't think there was many people speaking out about them as a concept. It was more about the timing. The jump, it was interesting to see because it was so clearly, it was so clear that Ari Zakarian representing Armenia, but representing Ilya Malinin, was against the idea that there would be one fewer jump. And then the US was also kind of pushing for the belated implementation of these rules. So that was very interesting to me to watch that kind of influence, because it did seem like this package narrowly passed on one day. Then there must have been complaining behind the scenes. And so they came in with a proposal on the next day to say, we're going to move this, but we're going to have another vote on when it's going to be implemented, which basically led to a lot of, with all due respect, lawyers show us the reason why that's allowing you to do this. And when they went eventually with much wrangling to figure out how they could eventually open that up, then they decided to postpone it again. So it was really, I felt like that was very evenly divided to the best of our ability to watch people voting with their messed up process. So and we've seen a lot of different opinions from skaters and coaches and choreographers about whether the postponement is a good thing or not. Definitely some relieved people and some frustrated people. As a fan, I'm really disappointed. I was really looking forward to seeing the new choreographic elements. I feel like this is the direction I want to see the sport go in, and I'm, was really cautiously hopeful that there would be some great new stuff. So I'm sad that we have to wait, even though I have some empathy for the athletes who are saying this is the wrong time to make the change.
I do think it makes sense to wait for the next Olympic cycle.
I think especially this year being the qualifying season for the Olympics, like it would have been, I think, a bit different if it was like the start of the 23-24 season, because there would have been like a time to figure everything out, sort of ease into it, instead of this is the year you're qualifying for the Olympics or qualifying your spot for the Olympics. We're throwing everything at you. I also get like both sides. I just found the count of 31 said yes, 25 said no, and there was one abstention to this proposal. So it was quite close.
And it was also interesting that they were trying to find that they basically didn't want to leave it that divided. And they kept trying to figure out a way that would get a consensus. And not having a consensus on it. Yeah. So I'm always looking for like, okay, so where's the actual controversy? And this was really interesting to see that so many were divided on it. And, it makes me wonder how much that is federations thinking, will this hurt or benefit our skaters? Federations thinking this is what we want to see as this in the sport as a whole. And then whether those federations have actually talked to their athletes about it, because I could imagine a variety of responses for a variety of reasons, depending on how in touch they were with what their athletes actually wanted versus what they think will benefit their athletes versus what they think will benefit the sport.
Do you want to talk about the somersault? It's the backflip, right? That's
yeah, same thing basically, but I think rulebook said somersault specifically.
Sounded fancier than backflip.
Well, theoretically, you could do a front flip now too, which is even more terrifying.
Don't mention it; people will hear you.
So Josh is saying the somersaults are now illegal. Argument makes me laugh because isn't Ilya's Westbury already a somersault? I don't know. Is it? It's more like a half.
I think because he's rotating sideways, it's more like an aerial type jump that they've already allowed. It's definitely a marginal case. It seems like it's just as dangerous, but I don't know that for sure.
I think one of the interesting things about this was a lot of the people coming to the microphone saying that this was good because it causes a viral moment. The maybe 4 or 5 seconds that it happens will go viral, but what about the rest of the skate? It's hard because it is putting it like the sport as a whole is risky. Jumps are risky, lifts, spins, everything. But we've seen more people attempt them now. They've not looked good. I've seen on social media, I can't remember who it was, but you have to at least make sure that you could actually do the backflip. I think some people are also just assuming that people are going to throw it in for fun. I hope that's not the case. I hope it would be a decision of, someone actually practicing them, but then it's an incredible danger to even practice them. It's why it's mostly show skating. But it also takes away from the shock factor that Adam doing a backflip at the end of his free skate at Worlds brought. That was special in that moment because he was solo down after the short program. He'd done his complete layout. He did a backflip, an illegal element. It was costing him 2 points. That was part of the viral moment. It wasn't just
definitely
the backflip.
And it's the same thing with Surya Bonali, and that's, it's the fact that it was being done as a sort of FU to the judges. The fact that it's banned, and that it's a rebel move is the thing that makes it go viral. Which is different than saying audiences in skating shows love backflips. They also love scratch spins. I feel like we could be arguing the same thing about people will like skating more if we go back to rewarding really fast scratch spins, which in fact I think they were, given what the examples were given for the choreographic spin. One of them was just a really, really good fast scratch spin, and which made me laugh because I was thinking yes, this is the kind of thing that people actually really have, audiences will react to and reward, that there's currently no value for.
This is a random, this reminds me of how when One Piece on Ice was happening, and there was Kishiro's just simple, very simple, what was it, camel spin, I think, was going viral in non-skating circles because, well, people just don't see skating in general, and for us it's just it's a fine spin, it's centered, it's nice, everything, but to see it going viral was very so that's how people outside of our intense skating fan base perceive it. So basically what I mean is a lot of things can go viral if they are at the right time. They don't need to be and of course, as you said, context means a lot. So the fact that it was banned and it was a sort of FU to the judges and stuff like that mattered a lot.
And chasing, I just as a general rule, something going viral once and then you chasing doing more of it in the hopes of going viral is just not how social media works. And so the idea that is this reactive way of doing things, it's the same thinking that is getting us contemporary pop rhythm dances. And it's just, it's missing the point that what people love about skating is things that are emotionally connected. The skater is emotionally connected to their performance. And that is that's something that has to be a coherent whole, and one element this, one element that, that's not going to create the thing that they're looking for. And I personally think that the backflips mostly tend to be really ugly, and they're thrown in and they interrupt a program, and sure, it's a fun trick. Put it in the finale as your fun trick. Yeah, that's great. In my opinion, it hardly ever adds anything to a program that I want to see. And
I was about to say, it's not a good move. I don't know. It sometimes it adds something if the music is perfect and you do it, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's never looking very smooth. It's just
it's that season when everyone was doing cartwheels.
Yes.
A couple seasons ago, I think, or more a little, but everyone started, and I think it started maybe with Kevin or something, but everyone was incorporating them, and it was but your music doesn't really fit that, or you're
head jump, do a gorgeous split jump, do a 1 foot axel, do a there's so many things people could do And then we have this fixation on the backflip because it's banned. So then, like, it's just
Maybe they unbanned it so that now everybody's like, oh, okay, now I'm not going to do it now that it's illegal.
I hope so.
Reverse psychology.
yeah. Also, Melissa's point, this would be a good time to implement a concussion protocol is very true.
Yeah.
There is some kind of a concussion protocol, but it's a question about whether it gets enforced, is my understanding. And that it's been better in recent years, but still not good. I'm just thinking, like, but it definitely would be a good time to like have a lot of, more education about it for both the judges and referees and for the skaters and coaches. I'm just thinking my source for the it's getting better is that I interviewed Ashley Kane, and she was saying that the difference between the 2 times that she had bad falls in competition and got concussions, that the first time she just was allowed to keep skating, and the second time the referee blew the whistle right away and she was like stopped. And the way she was treated and the way it was responded to was taken much more seriously, so that she was taking that as evidence that things were improving. It could be overall, it could be the difference between those 2 competitions, but I think it's better. I guess I was saying like there is some protocol, but whether it is good enough, I'm not qualified to judge.
I think it's one that the referee has to like activate essentially. Like it's on the referee to be like, blow the whistle, get like a medic on the ice right now. I assume the first concussion was the Zagreb concussion for Ashley. It is on every compilation on YouTube that like when my YouTube resets and it's like, here's things you might be interested in because you like ice skating, and it's like 4 compilations. It's always the first one. I'm like, I don't want to see this. I remember watching it live. It was a rare Zagreb live stream. I did like,
and that's why they
haven't
have
happened.
live streams.
Yeah, but yeah, it is like hit and miss. I feel like at least once or twice a season, I'm getting Lois to do a tweet on being like, have a go at the concussion protocols again, because someone will hit their head on the ice, get up and like continue skating. You've hit your head on an ice surface. That's gotta hurt, firstly, and secondly, there could be like, it could be a concussion. You might have just hit your head. Like, it is you don't know, but go on.
The skater is not going to stop because they are full of adrenaline. So there has to be an outside expert who has to be like, no, we have to stop.
And that's the thing. For the referee, the pressure of everything in the all of the incentives in the sport are to not stop the skater. Like, people will be mad at you for having stopped them, and so I think the more that decision can be taken out of like a judgment call, the better. I do wonder about, there was some discussion at Congress about AI and various things that like AI protocols can help with. I don't know if this is one of those things, but it does make me wonder about like times when taking the like subjective judgment factor out of it can help us lean toward like what we know is in the long-term best interest of the skater in the sport, even in like it may not feel like it's in their short-term best interest.
Did somebody put something about AI on the slides?
I didn't, but there was a lot of discussion about it, and I will do a little plug for my Future of Figure Skating podcast episode with Craig Bunton, because he runs the company that the former para skater. He runs the company that I can't remember the name of. I think it's SportLogic. That they had worked with the ISU on developing some models for what AI in judging could look like. And there's potential benefits for, it's basically using a bunch of camera angles to help judge things like, is a jump fully rotated? What is the height? What is the speed? What, these things that it's more, it's easier to find the information about, then there's still a human, judge that's making the actual judgment about whether something is, correct or better or not. But like you're using that sort of AI to do the data analysis, essentially, that the computer can do faster and more objectively than the human judge or technical panel person can do. And so that's the idea of how that could be used in judging, and then it could potentially be used for skaters in training as well, to do analysis of movements and see if they, finding patterns and potentially improving things that way. And there's lots of use of this in other sports, but it's all very expensive. And so that's been a big part of why the ISU has been hesitating to embrace it. I also thought it was interesting that I asked a question about, like, when I asked the question about were they going to stream, what if they could stream challenger events as a way of trying to increase accessibility of the sport. One of the things that the Director General said was that they are investigating the use of like AI and remote cameras as a way of trying to improve the quality and lower the cost of streaming different events around the world, which I don't know anything more than that, but it was interesting. And I'm a big AI skeptic when it comes to, a lot of the ways that we've been using it to generate content. But I do think when it comes to like data analysis, pattern recognition type stuff, I think it is a useful tool. So that piece I'm definitely open to, cautiously optimistically interested in. It's doesn't feel like it's the thing that's gonna fix everything, but cool, it's a tool you can use, but don't let it distract you from fixing the other things.
And I also think it can say, okay, this was an outside edge or not, or something. See those small things that a judge might even miss, even though they shouldn't, but
potentially. And that's the thing. It's whether there's a lot of effort that would go into developing the models that would be what what even is an inside edge versus an outside edge in a certain element, like the fact that there was a whole debate about what the definition of a cross roll is and whether the definition should be changed or not, because what was correct might be less aesthetically pleasing. There's these things are that even some things that sound like they could be made really objective are not actually fully objective when you get down to it. So I am really interested though in what this could look like, but I don't think we're going to see dramatic implementation of it in the short term, because it really seems like there has to be a lot of investment put into doing it well.
And for a second I thought, oh my god, it's going to replace so many jobs, but I don't even think it has to replace them. It can assist the judges and also hold them accountable.
Yeah, it's hopefully it would help with consistency between tech panels, I think, is one of the things. Yeah. Because you could still have the tech panel overrule the AI, but then that would be something that could be then viewed by other, reviewed by other tech panels or something, that those calls would be made. And so I think there's other sports are using this in ways that it seems like figure skating could benefit from as well.
And I also think, because I don't have this opinion, but I sometimes see it's so subjective, and how is this a sport? Because how, you hear those things sometimes, and I think it maybe would help with the reputation in that part.
Yeah.
But then also other people will probably be like, oh my god, but it is a judge sport and we want to keep that.
Yeah, you could have things right now, skating skills, you're partly measuring speed, you're measuring ice coverage, you're measuring the quality, the quality and difficulty of the turns. Like these are things that could be objectively measured. And
Yeah.
then it kind of goes down to the judge to say, does the combination of each of those things like produce the result that I want to see? Like some people might prefer a skater that's going really fast, and other people might prefer a skater that's doing like really complex movements. And those things are not like one inherently better than the other necessarily. So, but you could within each of those categories potentially get more objective measurements to help feed into it. So I think I see it being kind of a combined thing.
I really want AI to, I don't know, at some competition we had those graphics where it's like, this jump was so high and so far and so fast. And I need AI to do that for every single move. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This one. Huh.
Exactly.
Josh mentioned it.
Yeah. So if
I would love that.
It's just a matter of implementing those cameras and technology into a way that the judges can see it and the audience can see it. I think it could be really, really helpful. I think as long as we understand that all of these things are partial, I feel like it's the same thing with like under rotations, where like if we're gonna measure under rotations as something that impacts the score that much, we should be really precise about it. And at the same time, I have a lot of sympathy with the people who say that like the under rotation automatically, saying you can never get a positive GOE on a jump that's under rotated is wrong. I kind of have sympathy with that too, because a jump could be really good and like really beautiful, but it landed on the corner and you can never be able to get a positive. Like, I think so, this is just another example of something where it's like you're still making a values judgment on like which errors or positive things to weigh more than another, even if you are doing a really good job of measuring what happened on the ice.
I do wonder how they do the NHK trophy graphics. Like, how does this work?
Yeah.
No idea.
I think it's basically more high quality cameras and more camera angles is like what allows them to do it. This kind of measurements, you either like put a motion sensor directly on the skate, which there are efforts to do that around like biomechanics type things to try to measure like what actually the pressure of like force of landings is on the body and the skate. And so there are that kind of thing, but that's not used very much in skating. It's usually almost all of this stuff that we're talking about is done by cameras and training the computer to recognize what is landing or not.
They also do have a thing where, like, at the end, I think it's an NHK, maybe it's just Japanese TV, where you can see the speed of the skater throughout the performance and, like, before each jump and, like, how fast they're going at the start and the end, which might be the same technology, but I don't know how they do that as well.
I want that everywhere. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I just like numbers because Sarah doesn't like numbers, but I like numbers.
I would love to see that cool scope, height, and distance. Go ahead.
Now nobody's talking.
I'd like to see that height and distance thing used more in pairs. That I often am really interested in things like how big was that throw? How high was that twist lift? Like how fast was that lift moving across the ice? Like those are things that it's actually kind of difficult to compare skater to skater. You get a sense of it, especially if you're live, but if you're not live, like it depends so much on the angle you're seeing those things at. It would be really interesting to have objective measurements of like, well, who actually does have the highest twist?
So I think we have to explain that. Are we good with that topic?
Yeah.
Okay, we have to explain the next slide. So we put up what is it called? A private story on Instagram? Yeah, where we link to a form to ask choreographers and coaches and skaters for their opinion on the Congress and all of the all of the decisions during Congress, and we added those to a slide. And I don't know how to do that right now. Should I read all of them out? No, that's not good. But this is anonymous, of course. We didn't include the names. Nobody submitted their names, but we wanted to get some opinions from the people who it does affect. So yeah, the first, I'm just going to read them out loud, like the first one. I'm very glad the changes didn't pass for next season. It's very short before 2026 and qualification starts the upcoming season. So like we said, some of the changes, like some of the skaters are happy that they don't have to implement all of the changes, and especially the choreography. You know what I mean? The stuff we talked about before. Yeah, they have some time to work on that. I think the raising of the women's age to 21 is a good idea, as it will stop men dumping their aging out partners for extra junior years. Good point.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, this one is a longer one. I think that the Congress deciding about the rule changes for an upcoming season should have been the one 2 years ago. It's too late to be deciding in June about the possible rule changes for the season that starts shortly after. Athletes have to organize themselves, find choreographers for new programs, and can't just be throwing money away because ISU can't make up its mind in time. Interesting point. Any opinions yet?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to add anything? Because the next one is longer, so.
I was going to say that I am glad that to be hearing these things, that it matches a lot with what I was hearing from skaters and coaches that I talked to from pairs, even though this is probably including, I know this is including some dance and singles as well. But yeah, that feeling of that when the decisions get made being a problem. In some ways, I will say personally, the fact that they talked about it for so long got people thinking that they might be doing it, and then they decided to postpone it, is almost worse again than because it's like they got people excited or thinking or worried or whatever, and then they changed their mind again. It's almost worse than having it before. So I really think that the Congress happening at this time. Yes, Josh, exactly.
Josh is saying ISU Congress really should be in April.
Yeah.
Yeah, June is very late.
Well, that's why one of the proposals that went through is that they have to have their the technical decisions for the next season out by, I think it was April 31st or May 31st, but by the end of the season officially, instead of halfway through the off season.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm reading out the final one. This one is a longer one, so stick with me. The postponement is extremely disappointing and very short-sighted in my opinion. The athletes, coaches, and choreographers were all ready for these changes immediately. All these changes were positive for the greater good of our beautiful sport. The technical committee did an outstanding job with all of their extraordinary work over the past few years to move these changes forward. Also extremely disappointing that the US voted for the postponement. Love that. Solely for one skater. Oh, who is the skater?
Ilya is the theory.
Oh, juicy. We should not be considering these rule changes for one athlete rather than for all athletes. I feel often the people making these decisions are out completely of touch with what is going on in the rink on a daily basis. And those are the opinions we got from skaters, choreographers. I don't think skaters and coaches mostly, right? Skaters and coaches. I don't know who Sarah added. She's giving me a thumbs up, so yes.
I don't remember. I tried to add as many people as I could. There were a lot of people.
A lot of people in the spot.
So we maybe get other responses, but thank you to the people who put in responses into that. It's super helpful for us to hear the unfiltered things as well, as what we get what people want to say on the record.
And if you are watching right now and you are in that, should we post it publicly? No, then we are getting other people. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. See, this is why. I'm just
I'm just
why there needs to be actual formal channels for coaches to organize amongst themselves, athletes to organize among themselves, where they can communicate in these
union. We are starting a union now for everyone. No, but Sarah, maybe you can put up the story again, just in case somebody's, and we can keep it up for posting it a couple more days. So maybe.
Yeah, I'll do that afterwards.
Yeah.
Or maybe
just in case somebody else wants to add anything. And if
Maybe
you
I'll do it on
are not on
Monday.
the story and you want to add anything, we are sorry. But you can message us. We will
Yes.
not include your name.
It's very interesting, though, seeing some differences of opinion there as well about whether people felt like they were more ready and now disappointed for it to be postponed versus like glad that it was postponed. And I think that was actually really reflected in the vote. So even if, like I was trying to say, like even if the people who were voting and making the decisions were not necessarily reflective of like what the athletes in their country would like to see, it is maybe still in the end a result that's not far off from an actually divided, people in the sport actually being divided about it. So
I also want to say, speaking about voting, our award show is still happening. Just a lot of things happened this week. So we were supposed to do it this week, but because we got a Instagram DM, I think, about it, somebody was asking like, where are the results? And we are very sorry, but all of the things happening this week kind of postponed them. Hopefully, see, now I can say postponed. Hopefully next week.
That's a hard word.
Hopefully next week, maybe.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Aww. Yes. Are we at the end? Somebody else?
I have two last things to say. One is that I'm surprised we don't have the where Europeans is yet, because I thought we were going to get that at Congress, but hopefully soon we'll know where Europeans is going to be. And also I wanted to give a shout out to, I have three things to say, because I want to give a shout out to the exchange between Ari Zakarian wanting to have a minute to pontificate about how bad the Congress was being run, and Benoit Lavoie just saying no, which is truly an iconic moment in the history of our sport. If only I had the confidence of Ari to say, I am here speaking on behalf of the figure skating community. That was truly a moment. And also I want to give a shout out to to Sonia Hilmer, who posted showing what she was working on that would have fit with the choreo spins. And so I love her creativity. And so I am sad that we won't see those choreo spins, but maybe she'll find another way to use some of those elements in other ways.
And Melissa is saying that the swimmers have a union, apparently. I think we were half joking about it, but also kind of not, because
I will say I personally am not joking about it, even though I know that it would be really hard to organize, and that there's a lot of things in skating that go against their ability to have a players association, including the fact that the IOC as a whole really doesn't want skaters to do that. It's why they are really mad at athletics having prize money actually as well, because that also goes toward taking any power out of the hands of the IOC. And so this is very contentious and would be very there would be a lot of weight against it. But I do think that in the sports where athletes are unionized and the big professional leagues, there's a lot of benefits that they get from it, including, there's a lot of financial benefits, which is a whole other thing, but there's also just a lot of representational benefits to have somebody who can speak on your behalf, so you're not at the risk of being targeted for being the one who's speaking out. I know some union organizers in my life, and I would be happy to make any introductions for anyone who wants to learn more. That said, I also I don't expect skaters to start doing this, especially currently competitive ones, on their own. It's this. There's a lot of factors in the sport that make it hard.
I do want to thank Josh, Melissa, and Anna for your input, because it was we had a very good conversation with you guys, and you had a lot of good input. So thank you for that.
And thanks to everybody in our Discord who was watching and following along. It made it a lot of fun. And I will plug that one more time. They should join our Patreon if you're not already in it, and participate with us on these things.
Yes, and you can join for as little as €1, dollar, pound per month. I don't know what it is. It's like $1.25 then. And it's, yeah, and it will give you Discord access. And we are growing a nice little community, and it's been really nice. Yeah, and if there's nothing else to add, I think we are at the end of this live stream. And we will see you next week for the awards, hopefully.
It's going to happen.
It's gonna happen, yes. And follow us on all of the social media sites and wherever you can find us. Like and subscribe, please. Melissa is saying, thank you all for watching Congress. I made it through about 2 hours before I gave up. That's why you have to join the Discord, because I actually enjoyed it. It was fun.
Well, and also the creepy hold music that they had.
I wasn't so into it.
Very, please say that again.
Yeah, I'm actually into it like every evening. Oh, sorry. Me?
Yeah. You were saying something and it got interrupted.
Yeah. No, I got really into it, watching it on the Discord with everyone, because it was just an experience, a unique experience of complete.
I was in Washington, D.C. trying to actually lobby Congress people, and I was sitting in the halls, in between my meetings, listening and trying to follow along on the Discord, and it was just making me laugh that I was like, Congress, and they're both dysfunctional, and this is very funny. But as nobody in my the political group that I was with would talk about my feelings about the ISU Congress. So I was very glad to have that space, and also this one for all of my many opinions about everything that they were doing.
So yeah, thank you everyone for joining the live stream. We all agree the music was very creepy. And see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.